Chapter 1. Blood Moon Rising. The engagement party was supposed to be the beginning of Sera Hathaway's perfect life. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across the ballroom of the Whitmore estate, where champagne flowed like water and Philadelphia's elite mingled in their designer gowns and tailored suits. Sera stood at the center of it all in a silk dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent, a brilliant smile plastered on her face as strangers congratulated her on landing Marcus Whitmore III. Landing him. As if she were some kind of hunter and he the prize. "You look radiant, darling," Marcus murmured in her ear, his hand possessive on the small of her back. His cologne was expensive and suffocating. "My parents are thrilled. The merger of our families will be—" "Excuse me," Sera interrupted, her smile never wavering. "I need to use the powder room." She didn't wait for permission. She simply walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floor, feeling the weight of 300 pairs of eyes following her. The moment she reached the hallway, she kicked off her shoes and ran. She'd found the documents an hour before the party. Tucked in Marcus's study, between leather-bound law books that were more decoration than function, was a folder marked Hathaway Estate, Transfer of Assets. Every page detailed exactly how her family's land, the 200 acres in the Allegheny Mountains that had belonged to the Hathaways for generations, would become Whitmore property the moment they married. Her signature was already forged on half the documents. Sera burst through the manor's side door into the October night, the cold air hitting her like a slap. She didn't have a plan. Didn't have anything except her cell phone, a small purse, and the growing certainty that if she married Marcus Whitmore, she would disappear entirely. The forest behind the Whitmore estate stretched dark and endless. Sera had grown up hiking mountains, knew how to read the stars, how to find water. She could make it to the main road, flag down a car, get to the bus station. She just had to keep moving. Behind her, she heard shouting. Marcus's voice, angry now, the charming mask stripped away. "Sera, get back here. You're being irrational." She ran faster. The trees swallowed her whole. Branches caught at her dress, tearing the delicate fabric. Her bare feet found roots and stones, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The forest grew denser, wilder, and somewhere in the back of her mind, she realized she'd crossed into territory she didn't recognize. The moon hung full and crimson overhead. A blood moon, her grandmother would have called it. A night when the veil between worlds grew. Then Sera was so focused on what was behind her that she didn't see the shadow moving through the trees ahead. Not until it lunged. The wolf was massive, far larger than any natural wolf should be. Its fur was midnight black, and its eyes glowed an impossible amber in the darkness. Sera screamed and stumbled backward, tripping over her ruined dress and hitting the ground hard. The wolf advanced, lips pulled back from fangs that could easily tear her throat out. A growl rumbled from its chest, low and menacing. "This is it," Sera thought wildly. "I escaped Marcus, only to be killed by a wolf." But the killing blow never came. Instead, 3 more wolves burst from the undergrowth. These were gray and brown, smaller than the black one but no less terrifying. They circled the first wolf, snarling, forming a barrier between it and Sera. The black wolf's growl deepened into something that sounded almost like speech. And then, impossibly, it began to change. Sera watched in horror and fascination as the wolf's body contorted, bones cracking and reforming, fur receding into smooth skin. In less than 30 seconds, where a massive wolf had stood, there was now a man, a very naked, very powerful-looking man. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair and those same amber eyes that seemed to glow with their own light. His body was covered in old scars, silver in the moonlight, and he radiated danger like heat from a flame. "You're in Thornwood territory," he said, his voice rough and deep. "Humans aren't allowed here. Especially not tonight." Sera couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Her entire understanding of reality had just shattered. The man, the werewolf, took a step forward, and she finally found her voice. "Stay back." She scrambled backward, her hand closing around a fallen branch. "I don't know what you are, but you know exactly what I am." His amber eyes pinned her in place. "The question is, Why can I smell your fear from a mile away, yet you didn't run when you should have? I tried to run, Sera shot back, adrenaline overriding terror. Your wolf friend decided to make me dinner first. A low chuckle came from one of the other wolves, still in wolf form. The naked man's jaw tightened. That wasn't one of mine. That was a rogue. If my pack hadn't found you, then I'd be dead. Sera's hands were shaking. Instead, I'm just losing my mind. This isn't real. Werewolves aren't real. Tell that to your racing heartbeat. The 3 other wolves shifted then, their transformations just as grotesque and mesmerizing as the first. 2 men and a woman stood before her, all naked, all watching her with predatory interest. Kael, the woman said, her voice sharp. We can't let her go. She's seen too much. The first man, Kael, his name was Kael, didn't take his eyes off Sera. I know, Lydia. Then you know what has to be done. Sera's blood turned to ice. You're going to kill me. That would be the simplest solution, Kael agreed, and Sera's heart plummeted. But no, I'm not going to kill you. Then what? Kael crouched down so he was at her eye level, his amber gaze intense and searching. When he spoke, his voice was quieter, almost confused. I don't know yet, but the moment you crossed into my territory, I felt it. The pull, and that shouldn't be possible. Felt what? Sera whispered. You. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. His fingers were warm, almost hot, and where they touched her skin, something electric sparked between them. Sera gasped. Kael's eyes widened fractionally. That, he said softly. That's what I felt. Alpha, one of the men warned. We need to move. The rogue might not be alone. Kael stood in one fluid motion, his gaze never leaving Sera's face. Can you walk? She nodded, not trusting her voice. Good, because you're coming with us. And Sera? He waited until she met his eyes. Whatever you were running from tonight, it's nothing compared to what you've just stumbled into. He held out his hand. Sera looked at it, at him, at the 3 werewolves watching her with varying degrees of suspicion and curiosity. She thought about Marcus, about the forged documents, about the gilded cage her life had become. Then, she thought about Amber, eyes in impossible transformations and the electric spark that had passed between them when Kael touched her face. She took his hand, and everything changed. Chapter 2. The Alpha's domain. Kael's hand was warm, almost burning, against Sera's palm as he pulled her to her feet. The moment their skin connected, that strange electric sensation coursed through her again, stronger this time. She saw his jaw clench, saw something flash in those amber eyes that looked almost like pain. We need to move, Lydia said sharply, already scanning the dark forest. That rogue's scent is fresh. He might have been hunting with others. Kael released Sera's hand, and she immediately felt the loss of warmth. Marcus, Dane, scout ahead. Lydia, take our rear. I'll stay with her. The 3 wolves shifted again with sickening cracks of bone and muscle, their bodies contorting back into their wolf forms. Sera had to look away, her stomach churning. It was one thing to accept that werewolves existed. It was another to watch the grotesque transformation repeatedly. When she looked back, the 3 wolves had disappeared into the forest, leaving her alone with Kael. He was still naked. Sera fixed her gaze firmly on his face, heat flooding her cheeks despite everything. Do you people not believe in clothes? A hint of amusement softened his features. Shifting destroys fabric. We learn early not to be precious about modesty. He tilted his head, studying her. Does it bother you? I just watched you turn from a wolf into a man. That bothers me more than... She gestured vaguely at his body without looking. That. Fair enough. Kael moved toward a hollowed tree trunk and pulled out a bundle of dark fabric. Apparently, werewolves believed in strategic clothing stashes. He pulled on a pair of worn jeans but left his chest bare. Better? Marginally. He stepped closer, and Sera had to resist the urge to back away. Not from fear, though she should be afraid, but from the intensity of his presence. He seemed to fill the space around him, commanding attention without even trying. Can you run? He asked. I've been running all night. Not from a man in dress shoes. From wolves. His amber eyes held hers. Because that's what we're about to do. My territory is 2 miles north. We need to get there before any other rogues pick up your scent. Sera looked down at her bare, bleeding feet and her shredded designer dress. I'll manage. Something that might have been respect flickered across Kael's face. You're tougher than you look, Sera Hathaway. The way he said her name, low and careful, like he was tasting it, sent shivers down her spine. Stay close to me, he commanded, then took off into the forest at a pace that was just shy of superhuman. Sera ran after him, ignoring the pain in her feet, the burn in her lungs. Branches whipped at her face and arms. The forest was alive with sounds, rustling leaves, distant howls, the pounding of her own heart. But through it all, she kept her eyes locked on Kael's broad back. On the way, he moved through the trees like he was part of the forest itself. They ran until Sera's legs were shaking, until her vision started to blur. Just when she thought she couldn't take another step, Kael stopped abruptly. We're here, he said. Welcome to Thornwood. Sera looked up and gasped. The forest opened into a clearing where a massive lodge stood, built from dark wood and stone. Warm light spilled from dozens of windows and she could see figures moving inside. But it wasn't just one building. There were smaller cabins scattered throughout the clearing, connected by stone paths. Gardens, storage buildings, what looked like a training yard. It was a village, hidden in the mountains, completely off any map. How many of you are there? She whispered. In my pack? Just over 100. Kael watched her reaction carefully. In the world? More than you'd think. We're good at hiding. A howl echoed from the forest, the 3 wolves returning. They burst from the tree line and shifted back to human form, all 3 looking grim. Rogue Pack, Marcus reported, his silver hair gleaming in the moonlight. At least 5 of them heading this way. They picked up her scent. Kael's expression went hard, dangerous. How long? 15 minutes, maybe less. Get everyone inside, lock down the perimeter. No one in or out without my order. Kael's voice carried absolute authority, and the 3 werewolves moved immediately to obey. Sera felt a spike of terror. This is because of me. They're coming because they're rogues, and rogues don't respect territory laws. Kael turned to her, and some of the hardness left his expression. This isn't your fault, Sera, but we need to get you inside. Now. He started toward the main lodge, but Sera didn't move. Why are you helping me? You don't know me. For all you know, you could be what? Kael stepped closer, his amber eyes intense. Dangerous? A threat? He reached out and brushed his thumb across her cheekbone, where a scratch from a branch had drawn blood. The moment he touched her, that electric sensation sparked again, stronger, almost painful in its intensity. Kael inhaled sharply and pulled his hand back. Every instinct I have is screaming at me right now. Do you know what that means? Sera shook her head, not trusting her voice. Neither do I. Frustration flickered across his face. I've been alpha of this pack for 5 years. I've seen hundreds of humans. Never once have I felt... He trailed off, jaw clenched. We need to go. Questions later. He held out his hand again. Sera stared at it. At him. This man. This werewolf. Who had every reason to see her as a liability, as a threat to his pack. But when she looked into his eyes, she didn't see calculation or cold pragmatism. She saw confusion. And something that looked almost like fear, not of her, of whatever was happening between them. A howl split the night, much closer than before. Sera took Kael's hand. This time, when their palms connected, the electric sensation was so strong that her knees buckled. Kael caught her, one arm wrapping around her waist, pulling her against his bare chest. Heat radiated from his skin and she could feel his heart hammering beneath his ribs, as fast as her own. What is this? She breathed. I don't know, Kael admitted, his voice rough. But we're going to find out. He swept her into his arms, bridal style like she weighed nothing, and ran toward the lodge. Sera wanted to protest, to insist she could walk. But the truth was, her legs had turned to jelly the moment he'd touched her. The lodge doors burst open, and dozens of faces turned toward them. Sera saw shock, confusion, hostility. A human woman in the Alpha's arms was clearly not a common sight. Kael carried her through the main room without breaking stride, ignoring the whispers and stares, and climbed a staircase to the second floor. He shouldered open a door at the end of the hallway and finally set her down on a massive bed covered in dark furs. "This is my room," he said. "You'll be safe here." Sera looked around at the space, masculine and sparse with exposed beams and a stone fireplace. One wall was nothing but windows overlooking the forest. "Where will you sleep?" "I won't." Kael moved to the windows and closed heavy wooden shutters, blocking out the night. "I need to deal with the rogues. And then—" He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "Then you and I are going to have a very long conversation about fate and bonds, and why every cell in my body is telling me that you're mine." Before Sera could respond, he was gone, the door closing firmly behind him. She sat on the bed, her entire body trembling, his final words echoing in her mind. "You're mine." And the most terrifying part? Some deep, instinctive part of her wanted to believe it was true. Chapter 3. Secrets in the Dark. Sera sat on Kael's bed for exactly 3 minutes before her curiosity won out over exhaustion. The room was surprisingly sparse for an Alpha's private quarters. No photographs, no personal mementos, just functional furniture, the massive bed, and shelves lined with weathered books. She stood on shaking legs and moved to the window, carefully opening one shutter just enough to peer out. The clearing below was alive with activity. Wolves, dozens of them, patrolled the perimeter in coordinated patterns. She could see Kael standing near the tree line, still shirtless, his body tense as he spoke with Marcus and Lydia. Even from this distance, he commanded attention, his presence undeniable, as if sensing her gaze. Kael's head snapped up. His amber eyes found her window unerringly, and even across the distance Sera felt the intensity of that stare. Her breath caught. He held her gaze for a long moment before Lydia said something that pulled his attention away. Sera quickly closed the shutter, her heart racing. "What is happening to me?" She turned back to the room, wrapping her arms around herself. The silk dress was ruined, hanging off her in tatters. Her feet were cut and bleeding, dirt streaked her skin, and she probably looked like she'd lost a fight with a forest, which technically, she had. A soft knock at the door made her jump. "It's just me," a female voice called. "I'm coming in, okay?" The door opened to reveal a young woman, maybe early 20s, with warm brown skin and her hair in dozens of tiny braids pulled back in a ponytail. She carried a stack of clothes and a first aid kit, and her smile was genuine. "I'm Iris," she said, closing the door behind her. "Kael asked me to bring you some things." Well, actually, he growled something about making her comfortable, and I translated that to mean clothes and medical supplies. She set everything on a chair near the fireplace. "Mind if I start a fire? These old lodges get cold at night." Sera nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Iris worked efficiently, and soon flames crackled in the hearth, casting warm light across the room. She turned to Sera, her expression sympathetic. "You've had one hell of a night, haven't you?" "That's putting it mildly. Come sit. Let me look at your feet." Iris patted the chair, and Sera sank into it gratefully. Iris knelt and gently examined the cuts and scrapes. Not as bad as they could be. "You heal fast for a human. Is that unusual?" Iris paused, her hands stilling. "Maybe. Or maybe you're just lucky." She pulled out antiseptic and bandages. "This might sting." It did, but Sera bit her lip and didn't complain. As Iris worked, Sera studied her. "You're a werewolf too?" "Born and raised in Thornwood." Iris's hands were gentle as she cleaned the wounds. "My mom is the pack healer. I'm learning from her. And you're just okay with me being here? A human?" Iris met her eyes, her expression thoughtful. "Most of the pack is freaked out, honestly. We don't bring humans into our territory, ever. It's too dangerous, for them and for us. But Kael—" She trailed off, wrapping a bandage around Sera's foot. "I've never seen him act like this. The way he looks at you, it's like he's seeing a ghost. What does that mean?" "I don't know. But Kael doesn't do anything without a reason." Iris finished with the bandages and stood. "There's a bathroom through that door. Hot water, towels, everything you need. The clothes should fit. They're mine, so they might be a little big. You look exhausted. Thank you." Sera said softly. "For being kind." Iris's smile was sad. "Not everyone will be. Fair warning. Lydia is probably sharpening her claws right now. She's had her eye on the alpha position beside Kael for years. You mean she wants to be with him?" "I mean she wants to be his mate. His Luna." Iris moved toward the door. "And then you show up, and suddenly Kael is acting like his world just tilted off its axis. She's not going to like that." After Iris left, Sera stood under the hot shower for 20 minutes, letting the water wash away the dirt and blood and fear. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a towel, she found fresh clothes laid out, soft jeans, a thermal shirt, thick socks, and a fleece jacket. She dressed quickly and was toweling her hair dry when she heard it. A long, mournful howl that raised every hair on her body. It was answered by another howl, then another, a chorus of wolves singing to the blood moon. Sera moved to the window and opened the shutters fully this time. The clearing was filled with wolves now, massive creatures with gleaming eyes, all turned toward the forest. And there, at the front of the pack, was the largest wolf she'd ever seen, midnight black with those unmistakable amber eyes, Kael. As she watched, he threw his head back and howled, a sound so primal and beautiful it brought tears to her eyes. The pack joined him, and the night itself seemed to shudder with the power of their voices. Then, as one, they charged into the forest. Sera pressed her hand against the window glass, her heart in her throat. Be safe, she thought, and was shocked by how much she meant it. An hour passed. Then 2. Sera tried to rest but couldn't. She paced the room, examined Kael's books, mostly histories and strategy texts, and wondered if she should try to escape. But where would she go? Back to Marcus and his forged documents? Into a forest full of rogue wolves? No. For better or worse, this was the safest place she could be. Finally, she heard footsteps in the hallway. The door opened and Kael entered, now fully dressed in dark jeans and a Henley shirt. His hair was damp. He'd showered somewhere, and there was a fresh scratch along his jaw. "You're hurt," Sera said before she could stop herself. Kael touched the scratch absently. "It's nothing. Already healing." He closed the door and leaned against it, studying her with those intense amber eyes. "The rogues have been dealt with. You're safe. Did you kill them?" "We drove them off our territory. If they're smart, they won't come back." He pushed off the door and moved closer. "How are your feet?" "Better." "Iris helped." "Good." He stopped a few feet away, close enough that Sera could feel the heat radiating from his body. "We need to talk, Sera. About what's happening between us." Her pulse quickened. "I don't understand any of this." "Neither do I. But I have a theory." Kael ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture that made him seem suddenly younger, more vulnerable. "In werewolf culture, there's something called a mate bond, a connection between two souls that transcends logic or choice. When you find your mate, you know. Your wolf knows. Everything in you recognizes them." Sera's mouth went dry. "And you think..." "I think the moment you stepped into my territory, my wolf recognized you. As mine, as my mate." He said it quietly, but the words seemed to echo in the space between them. "That's why I couldn't let you go. Why touching you feels like lightning. Why every instinct I have is screaming at me to protect you, to keep you close. But I'm human. I know." Frustration flickered across his face. It shouldn't be possible. Mate bonds form between shifters, not between shifters and humans. "But I can't deny what I feel, what my wolf is telling me." Sera took a shaky breath. "What if you're wrong?" "Then I'm wrong." Kael met her eyes. "But I don't think I am. Do you?" She wanted to say yes, wanted to deny the pull she felt toward him, the way her body seemed to recognize his presence, the electric spark that ignited whenever they touched. But she'd never been good at lying. "No," she whispered. "I don't think you're wrong." Something fierce and possessive flashed in Kael's eyes. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides and cupped her face in his hands. His touch was gentle despite the barely leashed power in his frame. "Then we figure this out together," he said roughly. "Whatever this is. Whatever it means. You're not alone in this, Sera. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I. The honesty in those 3 words broke something open in her chest. Here was this powerful alpha, this creature of legend and nightmare, admitting his fear to her. Sera placed her hands over his, feeling the warmth of his skin, the calluses on his palms. What happens now? Now, Kael said softly, you rest, and tomorrow we start answering questions. Together. He pressed his forehead against hers, and Sera closed her eyes, breathing him in. Pine and earth and something wild. For the first time all night, she felt safe. Chapter 4. The Pack. Convened Sera woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. For a disorienting moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. Marcus's betrayal, the forest, the wolves, Kael's amber eyes telling her she was his mate. She sat up quickly, finding herself alone in the massive bed. She was still fully clothed in Iris's borrowed outfit, a heavy fur throw draped over her that definitely hadn't been there when she'd finally collapsed, into sleep sometime around dawn. Kael must have covered her. The thought sent warmth through her chest that had nothing to do with the blanket. A tray sat on the bedside, table with coffee, toast, and fresh fruit. A note was propped against the mug in bold, masculine handwriting. Eat. I'll be back soon. Sera's stomach growled, reminding her she hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. She devoured the food while studying Kael's room in daylight. It was just as spare as it had seemed last night. But now she noticed small details. A photo frame turned face down on the dresser, claw marks gouged deep into one wall, a worn leather journal on the nightstand. She shouldn't look. It was private, but her curiosity won out. She picked up the journal and opened it to a random page. Day 1247 since the challenge. Still no sign of healing. Marcus thinks I should step down, let someone else lead. But if I show weakness now, the pack will tear itself apart. They need strength, not a broken alpha. Sera's breath caught. What challenge? What had happened to Kael? Before she could read more, voices rose from somewhere below, angry, argumentative voices. One of them was definitely Lydia. Sera set down the journal and moved to the door, pressing her ear against it. Absolutely insane, Kael. A human here? Lydia's voice was sharp with fury. Do you know what the other packs will say? What the council will do? I don't answer to the council. Kael's voice was calm, but carried an undercurrent of steel. And I don't need to explain my decisions to you, Lydia. Your decisions affect all of us. She's a liability, a weakness, and everyone in this pack can see what's happening to you. And what's that? You're losing control. A pause, then more quietly. You haven't been right since Elena died. And now this human shows up and suddenly you're careful. The single word was a warning growl. Sera's hand tightened on the doorknob. Elena. Who was Elena? I'm sorry, Lydia said, though she didn't sound sorry. But it's the truth. This obsession with the human, her name is Sera. Fine, Sera. This obsession with her isn't healthy. It isn't safe. And if you won't think about yourself, think about the pack. We have enough enemies without inviting humans into our den. The pack meeting is in an hour, Kael said, his tone making it clear the conversation was over. Everyone will have their say then, including Sera. Footsteps retreated. Sera quickly moved away from the door, her heart pounding. A pack meeting. About her. Where everyone would have their say. This was going to be a disaster. A soft knock came at the door. Sera, it's Iris. Can I come in? Sera opened the door, grateful for a friendly face. Iris entered with an armful of clothes. I brought you more options. Figured you'd want to look, I don't know, put together? For the pack meeting. She set everything on the bed. Word travels fast around here. Everyone knows about you. And everyone hates me? Not everyone. Iris gave her a reassuring smile. Some of us are just curious. A human mate bond is unprecedented. It's like something out of the old legends. Iris, who's Elena? The smile faded from Iris's face. Kael told you about her? No, I overheard Lydia mention her. Sera sat on the edge of the bed. Please, if I'm walking into a pack meeting, I need to understand what I'm dealing with. Iris was quiet for a long moment, clearly weighing whether to speak. Finally, she sighed. Elena was Kael's mate. His true mate, chosen by the wolf and blessed by the moon. They were matched when they were teenagers. Rare, but it happens. Everyone said they were perfect together. Sera's chest tightened. What happened to her? 3 years ago, a rogue alpha challenged Kael for control of Thornwood. It was brutal. These challenges always are. Kael won, barely, but he was torn up badly. While he was recovering, the rogue's pack attacked the lodge in revenge. Elena was killed defending the younger pack members. Iris's voice was soft with old grief. Kael blamed himself, said he should have killed the rogue alpha, not just defeated him. Should have seen the attack coming. That's why he has those scars, Sera whispered. Those are just the ones you can see. Iris met her eyes. Since Elena died, Kael's been different, harder, more isolated. The pack has been waiting for him to choose a new mate, a new Luna. Lydia's been positioning herself for years, and then you show up, and suddenly everything changes. But I'm not. I can't replace someone he loved. I don't think anyone expects you to. Iris stood, moving toward the door. But the mate bond doesn't care about logic or timing or guilt. If you're truly his mate, Sera, then you're meant to be here. The question is whether you're strong enough to handle what that means. After Iris left, Sera stood in front of the mirror, trying to gather her courage. She chose dark jeans and a simple green sweater from the clothes Iris had brought, braided her damp hair over one shoulder, and tried to look like someone who belonged in a werewolf pack meeting. She looked terrified. A knock at the door made her jump. "It's me," Kael's deep voice called. Sera opened the door to find him standing there in dark clothing, his amber eyes immediately scanning her face. "You heard. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I know." He stepped inside and closed the door. "Iris told you about Elena. It wasn't a question." Sera nodded. Kael moved to the window, his back to her. "I should have told you myself. But I don't talk about her. Not with anyone. You loved her. With everything I had." His voice was rough. "And when she died, I thought that was it. Thought I'd spend the rest of my life alone because you only get one true mate. That's the rule. The law of nature. And yet," Sera said quietly, "here I am." He turned to face her, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole her breath. "Here you are, breaking every rule I thought I understood, making me feel things I thought died 3 years ago, and I don't know if it's a gift or a curse." Sera closed the distance between them, her heart aching for this powerful man who'd lost everything and was somehow finding the courage to risk his heart again. Maybe it's both. Kael reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle. "The pack meeting won't be easy. They'll question you, challenge your presence here. Some will be hostile. I can handle it. Can you?" His amber eyes searched hers. "Because once you walk into that room with me, there's no going back. The pack will know you're under my protection, that I've claimed you as mine. It will paint a target on your back from anyone who opposes me." "Then I guess," Sera said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice, "we'd better make sure they understand I'm not going anywhere." Something fierce and proud flashed in Kael's expression. He took her hand, threading his fingers through hers, and that electric spark danced between them, stronger now, almost familiar. "Stay close to me," he murmured. "And remember, you're mine. That means no one touches you without answering to me." The possessiveness in his tone should have frightened her. Instead, it made her feel protected, cherished. Chapter 5. Trial by fire. The main hall of Thornwood Lodge was massive, with exposed timber beams soaring overhead and a stone fireplace large enough to stand in. But it was the wolves that made Sera's breath catch. At least 50 pack members filled the space, arranged in a loose semicircle. Some sat on benches, others stood with arms crossed, and a few, the more dominant wolves, she guessed, positioned themselves closest to the front. All eyes turned to her and Kael as they descended the stairs, and the weight of those stairs was almost physical. Sera forced herself to keep her chin up, to walk steadily beside Kael even though her heart hammered against her ribs. His hand remained firmly clasped around hers, a silent declaration. Lydia stood near the fireplace, her silver blonde hair pulled back severely, her expression cold. Marcus, the older one, stood beside her, along with several other wolves who radiated authority. The pack's inner circle, Sera realized. Alpha, Marcus said formally, inclining his head. We've gathered as you requested. Kael led Sera to the front of the room, positioning himself so he stood slightly in front of her, protective without being domineering. Thank you all for coming. I know this situation is unprecedented. That's one word for it, someone muttered from the back. Kael's eyes flashed amber, and the room fell silent. This is Sera Hathaway. Last night she crossed into our territory while fleeing danger. She was attacked by a rogue and my patrol intervened. She saw us shift. She knows what we are. A ripple of unease moved through the crowd. A young man with red hair spoke up. Then why is she still alive? Our laws are clear. Humans who discover us are either turned or eliminated. Because, Kael said, his voice carrying absolute authority, she is my mate. The room exploded. Voices rose in shock, disbelief, anger. Sera heard fragments. Impossible. Human. What about Elena? He's lost his mind. Lydia's face had gone white, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Kael let the chaos continue for a moment before releasing a low, rumbling growl that silenced everyone instantly. I understand your concerns. I share them. A mate bond with a human shouldn't be possible, but I know what I feel, what my wolf knows. Your wolf is confused, Lydia said sharply, stepping forward. You're still grieving, Elena. You haven't been yourself since... Don't. The single word was a warning. Don't use Elena's memory as a weapon, Lydia. Lydia's jaw tightened, but she didn't back down. Then explain it to us, Alpha. Explain how a human, a stranger, can suddenly be your fated mate when you've already had one. When we all watched you mourn her for 3 years. Kael was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. I can't explain it. I don't understand it myself. All I know is that the moment Sera entered our territory, something in me recognized her. The mate bond, it's real. It's there. And I won't deny it just because it doesn't fit our understanding of how things should work. But she's human, another voice called out. She doesn't have a wolf. How can there be a bond without, I don't know. Kael's frustration was palpable, but the bond exists whether we understand it or not. Sera felt all eyes turn to her again. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, out from behind Kael's protective stance. May I speak? Kael looked surprised but nodded. Of course. Sera faced the pack, trying not to show how terrified she was. I know you have no reason to trust me. I'm human. I'm an outsider, and I've disrupted your world just by existing. But I didn't ask for any of this. Her voice grew stronger. Last night I was running from a man who wanted to control me, who forged documents to steal my family's land. I ran blindly into a forest and nearly died. Your Alpha saved my life. So that's what this is about, Lydia said coldly. Gratitude. Trauma bonding, not a mate bond. I thought that too, Sera admitted. I wanted to think that. Because the alternative, that I could feel this pull toward someone I just met, someone who isn't even human, it terrifies me. But I can't deny what I feel when he touches me. The electricity. The recognition. She turned to look at Kael, finding strength in his amber eyes. I don't understand it. But it's real. An older woman with gray-streaked hair stood from her bench. Iris had mentioned her, the pack healer, Iris's mother. The old stories speak of such things, she said quietly. Bonds that transcend species. Mates found in unexpected forms. We've dismissed them as legends, but perhaps... You can't be serious, Diana, Marcus interrupted. Those are children's tales. Meant to teach lessons, not... Are they? Diana's gaze was steady. We shift into wolves. We heal impossibly fast. We live for centuries. Our entire existence is something humans would call a fairy tale. Who are we to say what's possible and what isn't? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some agreeing, others skeptical. Even if the bond is real, Lydia said, her voice tight, she's still a liability. What happens when she wants to return to her human life? When she tells others about us? One human knowing our secret puts the entire pack at risk. I wouldn't, Sera said firmly. I wouldn't endanger any of you. You say that now? But what about next month? Next year? When this novelty wears off and you miss your old life? Sera met Lydia's hostile gaze. I have no old life to miss. The man I was engaged to forged my signature to steal my inheritance. My parents are dead. I have no siblings, no close friends. Everything I thought I knew about my life was built on lies and manipulation. Her voice cracked slightly. So no, Lydia, I won't be running back to the human world anytime soon. For the first time, she saw something flicker in Lydia's expression. Not sympathy, but perhaps a grudging respect. Kael stepped closer to Sera, his presence solid and reassuring at her back. Sera will stay under my protection. Anyone who harms her answers to me. Is that understood? The authority in his voice was undeniable. Most of the pack members nodded or murmured agreement. But Sera could see the doubt in some eyes, the hostility in others. There will be a trial, Marcus said suddenly. It's tradition. When a new wolf joins the pack, they must prove themselves worthy. If she's truly to be your mate, your Luna, she should be held to the same standard. She's human, Kael growled. She can't— I'll do it, Sera interrupted, surprising everyone, including herself. What kind of trial? Marcus's smile was cold. 3 tests. Strength, intelligence, heart. Pass all 3 and the pack will accept you. Fail, and you leave Thornwood territory forever. Kael's hand found hers, squeezed tightly. Sera, you don't have to— Yes, I do. She looked up at him, seeing the worry in his amber eyes. If I'm going to be part of this world, I need to earn it. Not just hide behind your protection. Something fierce and proud flashed across his face. He turned to Marcus. Fine, but the trials will be fair. No one deliberately sabotages her. Of course, Alpha. Marcus inclined his head. We begin tomorrow at dawn. The meeting dissolved after that. Pack members dispersing in groups, their voices rising in heated discussion. Sera felt exhausted, wrung out from the confrontation. Iris appeared at her elbow, her expression sympathetic. That was brave. Stupid maybe, but brave. What have I just agreed to? Sera asked weakly. Honestly, I have no idea. The trials haven't been done in decades. Iris glanced at Kael, who was speaking in low, intense tones with Marcus and Diana. But whatever they are, they won't be easy. Lydia passed by, pausing just long enough to say softly, I hope you survive tomorrow, human. It would be a shame for Kael to lose another mate so soon. The words were like a knife between Sera's ribs. Before she could respond, Lydia was gone. Kael returned to her side, his face dark with barely contained anger. Lydia had no right. She's scared, Sera said quietly. She loves you, or wants to, and I'm threatening everything she hoped for. That doesn't excuse cruelty. No, but I understand it. Sera looked up at him, this powerful alpha who had upended her entire world in a single night. Kael, what if I fail the trials? His jaw clenched. You won't. But if I do. He cupped her face in both hands, his touch gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. Then we find another way. I'm not losing you, Sera. Mate bond or not, trials or not, you're mine, and I protect what's mine. The possessiveness should have frightened her. Instead, it made her feel cherished, safe, claimed. Chapter 6. The first trial, dawn came too quickly. Sera had barely slept, her mind racing through every possible scenario of what the trials might entail. Kael had stayed with her through the night, not in the bed but in a chair by the fire, as if he couldn't bear to leave her alone. She'd woken several times to find his amber eyes watching her in the darkness, filled with an emotion she couldn't name. Now, as pale light filtered through the windows, Iris helped her dress in practical clothes. Sturdy pants, a fitted shirt, and boots that actually fit. Whatever happens today, Iris said quietly, braiding Sera's hair back from her face. Remember that you're stronger than you think. I'm human. Iris, I can't compete with werewolves. Maybe that's not the point. Iris tied off the braid. Maybe the trials aren't about being as strong as us. Maybe they're about showing who you really are. Kael knocked once before entering, his expression grim. It's time. The pack had gathered in a clearing behind the lodge, forming a wide circle around what looked like an obstacle course from hell. Rope courses stretched between trees, a mud pit filled one section, and a sheer rock wall loomed at the far end. Marcus stood at the center, his silver hair gleaming in the morning light. The first trial, strength, not just of body but of will. Complete the course before the sun clears the tree line, and you pass. Sera looked at the course, then at the sun just beginning to peek over the mountains. Maybe 20 minutes, 30 if she was lucky. That's impossible, she breathed. For a human, yes, Lydia said from the edge of the circle, her smile cold, which is rather the point, isn't it? Kael's hands clenched into fists. This isn't a fair test. She doesn't have our speed, our healing. She accepted the trials, Marcus interrupted, knowing what she was. If she wants to be Luna, she must prove she can survive in our world. Sera placed a hand on Kael's arm, feeling him vibrate with barely controlled rage. It's okay. I'll try. Sera, I have to. She looked up at him, memorizing his face in case she failed. Trust me? His jaw clenched, but he nodded. With my life. She took her position at the starting line. The pack fell silent, every eye fixed on her. She could feel their doubt, their skepticism. Some wanted her to fail. Others, like Iris and Diana, looked worried but hopeful. Begin, Marcus called. Sera ran. The first obstacle was a cargo net stretched between two trees. She scaled it quickly. She'd done rock climbing before, knew how to find handholds, how to distribute her weight. But her human muscles burned in a way wolf muscles wouldn't. Next came the rope swing over the mud pit. She grabbed the rope, pushed off, and nearly lost her grip halfway across. Her hands, soft from months of engagement party planning and Philadelphia society, tore open on the rough hemp. She bit back a scream and held on, landing hard on the other side. Blood dripped from her palms. She's slowing down. Someone called from the crowd. She won't make it. Sera pushed forward. The rope course between trees required balance and core strength. She moved carefully, testing each rope before trusting her weight to it. Below, the ground was littered with rocks. One fall could break bones. Halfway across, a rope snapped. Sera's heart lurched as she fell, catching herself on another rope by pure instinct. Pain shot through her shoulder. She'd wrenched it badly, but she didn't let go. The rope was frayed, Iris called out, her voice sharp with accusation. Someone tampered with it. Prove it, Lydia shot back. Sera didn't have time for their argument. She continued across, every movement agony, her injured shoulder screaming. When she finally reached the platform, she nearly collapsed. But the rock wall still loomed ahead. She looked up at the sheer face, at the small handholds barely visible in the stone. Her hands were torn and bleeding, her shoulder possibly dislocated, and the sun was nearly above the tree line. She was going to fail. Sera, Kael's voice cut through her despair. She found him in the crowd, his amber eyes fierce. You're not weak. You never were. Show them! Something in his words sparked a memory. Her grandmother, teaching her to climb the rocks near their family land. The mountain doesn't care about your strength, Sera. It cares about your determination. Mind over muscle. Always. Sera approached the wall and began to climb. She couldn't overpower this challenge, so she had to outsmart it. She looked for the path of least resistance, found the holds that required balance rather than brute strength. Her bloody hands left red smears on the stone, but she didn't stop. Halfway up, her injured shoulder gave out. She dangled by one hand, gasping in pain. She's done, someone said. But Sera wasn't done. She swung her body, using momentum to reach a foothold, caught it, found her balance again, kept climbing. The sun kissed the top of the trees. With a final, desperate lunge, Sera grabbed the top of the wall and hauled herself over. She collapsed on the platform, chest heaving, every muscle trembling. The clearing was silent. Then Diana began to clap. Slowly, others joined. Iris, some of the younger wolves, even Marcus looked grudgingly impressed. Kael was suddenly there, having somehow scaled the wall in seconds. He gathered her into his arms, careful of her injuries. You did it, he said, his voice rough with emotion. You incredible, stubborn, amazing woman. I passed? Sera managed. You more than passed. He brushed her hair back from her face, his touch infinitely gentle. You showed them exactly who you are. Diana appeared at the top of the wall with medical supplies, her expression warm. Let me see those hands, child. As Diana worked, cleaning and bandaging Sera's torn palms, Kael held her steady. The pack had gathered below, their voices rising in discussion. The mood had shifted. She could feel it. She wasn't just the human anymore. That rope was sabotaged, Iris insisted, glaring at Lydia. Lydia's expression was unreadable. You have no proof. I don't need proof to know what you're capable of. Enough. Kael's voice carried absolute authority. There will be an investigation. If anyone in this pack has deliberately endangered Sera, they'll answer to me personally. His amber eyes swept the crowd, and several wolves looked away. The second trial will be tomorrow at noon. Until then, Sera rests. He lifted her easily into his arms. She was too exhausted to protest, and carried her back toward the lodge. The pack parted to let them through, and Sera saw new respect in some eyes, fear in others. When they reached his room, Kael laid her carefully on the bed and knelt beside her. Your shoulder is dislocated. This is going to hurt. More than it already does? A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. Probably. He positioned her arm carefully. On 3. 1. He popped her shoulder back into place on 1, and Sera couldn't stop the cry that escaped. But immediately the sharp pain diminished to a dull ache. Bastard, she gasped. If I'd counted to 3, you would have tensed up. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, then her temple, then the corner of her mouth. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Sorry I couldn't protect you. Sera caught his face between her bandaged hands. You did protect me, by believing I could do it. That's all I needed. Kael's eyes closed, and when he opened them again, they shimmered with unshed tears. When that rope snapped and I thought you would fall, his voice broke. I haven't felt fear like that since the night Elena died. I didn't fall. No, you didn't. He pressed his forehead against hers, breathing her in. You're going to give me gray hair before this is over. You're a werewolf. You'll heal. His laugh was startled and genuine, and the sound filled something in Sera's chest she hadn't known was empty. Here, in this moment, covered in blood and mud and exhaustion, she had never felt more alive. Rest, Kael murmured, though he made no move to let her go. 2 more trials. Then you're mine. Officially. I'm already yours, Sera whispered, finally admitting what she'd been feeling since the moment their hands first touched. Trial or no trial, pack acceptance or not, I'm yours, Kael. His grip on her tightened, possessive and protective and achingly tender all at once. And I'm yours, Sera Hathaway, for as long as you'll have me. Outside, the sun climbed higher, and Sera closed her eyes, Kael's heartbeat steady beneath her ear. 2 more trials, 2 more chances to prove she belonged in this impossible world. She would pass them. She had to, because walking away from Kael Thornwood was no longer an option her heart would accept. Chapter 7. Bloodlines and Secrets. Sera woke to the sound of raised voices downstairs. Her body ached everywhere, but Diana's healing salves had worked better than any human medicine. Her shoulder was stiff but functional, and her torn palms had scabbed over cleanly. She sat up carefully, finding Kael's leather journal on the nightstand. He must have left it for her. The voices grew louder. One was definitely Kael, his tone sharp with anger. The other, older, unfamiliar. Sera moved to the door and cracked it open. Don't care what the council thinks, Kael was saying. Sera stays. She passed the first trial. Barely, an elderly male voice responded. And only because you've gone soft, Kael. The trials should have killed her. That's their purpose, to weed out the weak. She's not weak. She's human. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I stand, you're jeopardizing everything your bloodline has built. The Thornwood Pack has led these territories for 3 centuries. And now you want to make a human your Luna? Your father would be ashamed. The silence that followed was deadly. My father, Kael said, his voice dangerously quiet, is dead, along with my mother, my sister, and half the pack elders. Killed by rogues while I was away at a council summit that you insisted I attend. So don't you dare invoke his memory to manipulate me, Elder Grayson. Sera's breath caught. She hadn't known Kael had lost so much. Those deaths were tragic, Grayson said, his tone softening marginally. "But they're precisely why you must be strategic now. The pack needs strength, stability, a Luna who can give you heirs, warriors, not some fragile human girl who can't even—" "Enough!" Kael's voice cracked like a whip. "The second trial begins at noon. Sera will prove herself again. And when she does, I expect the council's support. And if she doesn't," a pause, "then we'll deal with that when it happens." Footsteps approached the stairs. Sera quickly closed the door and moved back to the bed, her mind racing. Kael had lost his entire family, was leading a pack while carrying that grief. And now the council, whatever that was pressuring him to reject her. Kael entered a moment later, his expression dark, until he saw she was awake. Then his features softened. "How long have you been up?" "Long enough to hear that you've lost more than just Elena." Sera patted the bed beside her. "Sit. Tell me." He hesitated, then sank down beside her with a heavy sigh. 5 years ago, a coalition of rogue packs decided they wanted Thornwood territory. My father refused to negotiate. The council called an emergency summit, required all alphas to attend. I was barely 23, not yet officially alpha, but my father brought me as his heir. His hands clenched into fists. We were gone for 3 days. The rogues attacked on the second night. They burned the northern cabins, killed everyone who fought back. My mother tried to evacuate the children. She died protecting them. My sister Mara was 16. His voice broke. She died in my mother's arms. Sera took his hand, threading her fingers through his. "I'm so sorry. My father died 2 weeks later from his injuries. With his last breath, he made me promise to protect the pack, to be stronger than he was, to never let emotion cloud my judgment." Kael looked at her, his amber eyes filled with old pain. "And then Elena died, and I thought I'd broken that promise. Thought I'd failed everyone." "You didn't fail anyone, Kael. You survived. You've kept this pack together, have I? Or have I just been going through the motions? Too afraid to really live?" He cupped her face gently. "And then you appeared, and suddenly I want things I thought I'd buried with Elena. Want to feel something other than duty and grief." Sera leaned into his touch. "The second trial. What is it?" "Intelligence, wisdom, pack history, and lore." His expression turned worried. "Diana will ask you questions. Some will be about werewolf culture, things you couldn't possibly know. Others will test your judgment, your understanding of pack dynamics. So I'm going to fail." "Not necessarily. Diana is fair. She's not testing what you know. She's testing how you think. How you reason through problems you don't have answers for." He paused. "There's something else. Elder Grayson is right about one thing. Pack lineage matters. If you become my Luna, the council will investigate your bloodline. Look for any werewolf ancestry that might explain the mate bond. There isn't any. My family has been human for generations." "Are you certain?" Kael studied her face. "You said your grandmother owned land in the Allegheny Mountains. Near here? About 30 miles north. She left it to me when she died. That's the land Marcus was trying to steal." Sera frowned. "Why?" "Because 30 miles north is where the old Hathaway Pack used to live." Sera's blood went cold. "What?" Kael stood and moved to his bookshelf, pulling down an ancient leather-bound tome. He flipped through yellowed pages until he found what he was looking for. "Here, the Hathaway Pack. They controlled the northern territories until about 80 years ago. Then they vanished. The entire pack, gone overnight." He showed her a hand-drawn map with Hathaway territory marked in faded ink. The boundaries matched her grandmother's land exactly. "That's impossible," Sera whispered. "My grandmother never mentioned anything about werewolves. She was just my grandmother." "What was her name?" "Elizabeth Hathaway. But everyone called her Beth." Kael's expression shifted. "Beth, as in Elizabeth Hathaway, the last alpha's daughter." He turned more pages, then stopped on one with a sketch of a young woman with familiar eyes. She disappeared the same night the pack did. Everyone assumed she'd been killed. But what if she ran? What if she left the werewolf world behind and tried to live as human? Sera stared at the drawing. The resemblance was undeniable. The same bone structure, the same stubborn set to the jaw. If my grandmother was a werewolf, why didn't she shift? Why didn't I inherit it? Sometimes the wolf sleeps for generations, skips bloodlines. But the bond, the ability to be a true mate, that runs deeper than shifting. Kael closed the book carefully. If you have Hathaway blood even dormant, it would explain everything. Why you can feel the mate bond. Why you survived your first trial despite impossible odds. Why you're healing faster than a normal human should. Sera looked down at her bandaged hands. The wounds that should have taken weeks to heal were already closing. I thought that was Diana's salves. Diana's salves help. But they don't work miracles. He sat beside her again. Sera, this changes everything. If the council knows you have werewolf ancestry, then they can't object to me being your Luna. Understanding dawned. That's what the second trial is really about. Diana's going to test me, see if I carry the bloodline. Not just test. She's going to try to wake your wolf if it's there. Kael took both her hands. It might not work. The wolf might be too deeply buried. But if it does, the transformation is painful, agonizing, and there's no guarantee you'll survive it. Fear clawed at Sera's throat. What are the odds? For someone who's never shifted, whose wolf has been dormant for generations? Kael's jaw tightened. Maybe 50-50. And if I refuse? Then you complete the trials as human. Face the third trial without the strength or healing of a wolf, and hope the pack accepts you anyway. He searched her face desperately. I won't force you into this. Whatever you choose, I'll do it. The words came out steadier than she felt. If there's even a chance I have a wolf inside me, I want to know. I need to know. Kael pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. You're the bravest person I've ever met. I'm terrified. That's what makes it brave. He pulled back just enough to look at her. Whatever happens today, whether your wolf wakes or stays sleeping, you're still mine. Still my mate. That doesn't change. Sera kissed him then, pouring everything she felt into it, fear and hope, and the desperate need to believe they could make this impossible situation work. He responded with matching intensity, his hands tangling in her hair, his body shaking with the effort of holding back. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kael rested his forehead against hers. After this is over, after all 3 trials, I'm going to claim you properly, mark you as mine in every way that matters. Heat flooded Sera's cheeks. Is that a promise, Alpha? His eyes flashed amber. That's a vow. A knock at the door interrupted them. Iris's voice called through the wood. It's time. Diana is ready. Kael stood, extending his hand to Sera. Ready to find out if you're more than human. Sera took his hand, feeling that familiar electric spark dance between them. Ready to find out who I really am. Together they headed downstairs to face her second trial, and possibly awaken a beast that had been sleeping in her blood for generations. Chapter 8. Awakening. The pack had gathered in a different clearing, this one ringed by ancient standing stones covered in carved symbols that seemed to pulse with their own light. Diana stood at the center, her gray-streaked hair loose around her shoulders, wearing robes that marked her as more than just a healer. She was a keeper of the old ways. The second trial. Intelligence and blood, Diana announced, her voice carrying a weight of ritual. Sera Hathaway, you stand at the threshold between 2 worlds. Today, we discover which one claims you. The pack formed a circle around them. Sera felt their eyes on her, some curious, some hostile, some hopeful. Lydia stood with her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Elder Grayson was there too, his weathered face skeptical. This is highly irregular. The awakening ritual hasn't been performed in 50 years. Because we haven't needed it in 50 years, Diana replied calmly. But if this girl carries Hathaway blood, her wolf deserves the chance to wake. And if she doesn't? If she's nothing but human? Grayson challenged. Then she answers questions like any other candidate. But we test the blood first. Diana turned to Sera, her expression kind but firm. Come, child. Kneel before the center stone. Sera's legs felt like water, but she walked to the ancient stone and knelt. The rock was warm beneath her knees, almost alive. Kael stood at the edge of the circle, every muscle in his body tense, ready to intervene if something went wrong. Diana withdrew a silver blade from her robes, ancient, etched with more of those glowing symbols. Give me your hand. Sera extended her right hand, palm up. Diana made a quick, precise cut across her palm. Blood welled up, bright red, and Diana guided Sera's hand to press against the center stone. The moment her blood touched the rock, everything changed. Power surged through Sera like lightning. She gasped, her back arching, as something deep inside her stirred, something that had been sleeping for so long it had forgotten its own name. The symbols on the stones blazed brighter, and she heard whispers in a language she shouldn't understand but somehow did. Wake. Remember. Run. Pain exploded through her body. Her bones felt like they were trying to rearrange themselves. Her skin burned, and somewhere deep in her chest, something howled, not with her voice, with something other. She has it, Diana breathed. She has the wolf. I can feel it, but the wolf was buried so deep, trapped under generations of human life and dormancy. It clawed toward consciousness, desperate and wild, but couldn't quite break through. Sera screamed. Kael broke from the circle, dropping to his knees beside her. Stop this. You're killing her! The wolf must choose, Diana said, though her face was creased with concern. We cannot force the awakening, only guide it, then guide it faster. Kael's hands cupped Sera's face, his amber eyes boring into hers. Sera, listen to me. Find your wolf. Call to her. She's there, I can feel her. But she's afraid. It hurts. Sera gasped. I know it does. His thumbs stroked her cheeks. But you're not alone. My wolf recognizes yours. Can you feel it? That connection between us? And she could. Through the pain, through the chaos of her body trying to become something it had forgotten how to be, she felt Kael's presence. His wolf, strong and steady and utterly certain that she belonged to him, mine, his wolf said, not with words, but with absolute conviction. And deep inside Sera, something answered, yours the world exploded into sensation. Sense she'd never noticed before. Pine and earth and pack and mate. Sounds amplified. Heartbeats, breath, the rustle of leaves miles away. And power. Raw, primal power that had been locked away for generations. But the shift wouldn't complete. Her wolf was too weak, too long dormant. She hovered between forms, trapped in agonizing limbo. She's not strong enough, Grayson said coldly. The bloodline is too diluted. We should end this before— No! Lydia's voice cut through the clearing, surprising everyone. She stepped forward, her expression conflicted. Diana, use my strength. Channel it through the stones. Diana's eyes widened. Lydia, that kind of energy transfer will work. You know it will. Lydia knelt across from Kael, placing her hands on the stone beside Sera's bloody palm. I don't like her. I don't trust her. But if she truly has Hathaway blood, then she's Pack. And we don't abandon Pack. Sera met Lydia's eyes through her pain and saw grudging respect there. Not friendship. Not yet. Maybe never. But acknowledgement. Diana began to chant in that ancient language, and power flowed from Lydia through the stone into Sera. It felt like liquid fire in her veins, burning away the last barriers between her and her wolf. Wake up, Sera demanded of the beast inside her. I'm not afraid of you anymore. Wake up, the wolf responded with a surge of joy and rage and recognition. But the shift still wouldn't complete. Her body had been human for too long, the wolf too deeply buried. It's not enough, Diana said, her voice strained. She needs— Kael bit down on his own wrist, hard enough to draw blood. She needs an alpha's bond. Before anyone could stop him, he pressed his bleeding wrist to Sera's mouth. Drink. Let my strength become yours. Sera tasted copper and wild things and moonlight. The moment his blood touched her tongue, the final barrier shattered. Her wolf surged forward. The transformation was brutal. Bones cracked and reformed, muscles tore and rebuilt, skin rippled with emerging fur. Sera screamed, or tried to. But the sound came out as a howl that shook the clearing. When the pain finally receded, she opened eyes that saw the world in shades of silver and gold. She tried to stand on legs that felt wrong, stumbled, and looked down to see paws instead of hands. White paws, connected to legs covered in silver-white fur. She was a wolf. The Pack's collective gasp told her this was significant, though she didn't understand why. Her wolf mind was too new. too overwhelmed by sensation to process human concerns. But she knew Kael, knew him by scent and sound, and the way his wolf called to hers with absolute certainty. "Mate," her wolf whispered. "Ours." Kael shifted too, his transformation smooth and practiced. His massive black wolf approached her carefully, head lowered in submission, an alpha bowing before his mate. "Mine," his wolf said again. Sera's wolf responded by touching her nose to his, then collapsing against his larger frame, utterly exhausted. Diana's voice seemed to come from very far away. "A white wolf. The Hathaway bloodline always produced white wolves. She is who we thought, a descendant of the lost pack." "More than that," Marcus said, his voice awed. "Look at the stone." Sera's blood on the center stone glowed pure silver, and the ancient symbols blazed so brightly they were almost painful to see. Around them, the other standing stones hummed with responding energy. The Hathaway line didn't just control territory, Diana breathed. They were stone speakers, magic users, and it seems that power has awakened in Sera as well. Elder Grayson knelt before Sera's wolf form, his earlier skepticism replaced by something like reverence. "Forgive my doubt, young Alpha. You carry not just werewolf blood, but ancient power. The Council will accept you without question." Sera's wolf barely registered his words. She was too focused on Kael's wolf beside her, on the rightness of being pressed against his warmth, on the certainty that flooded through every fiber of her new form. This was what she was always meant to be, who she was always meant to be with. Slowly, painfully, Sera forced herself back into human form. The shift was harder in reverse. She didn't know how to control it yet. But eventually she knelt naked on the ground, Kael's arms immediately wrapping her in his shirt. "You did it," he said hoarsely, pulling her against his chest. "My brave, incredible mate, you did it!" Sera could barely speak, her throat raw from howling and transformation. But she managed 2 words that made Kael's entire body shudder. "Our wolf, not her wolf, not his wolf, but theirs, bound together by a mate bond that had just become infinitely stronger." The pack erupted in howls of acceptance, even Lydia joining in. The second trial was over, and Sera had not just passed. She had proven herself to be something more than anyone expected. Chapter 9. The breaking point. Sera woke 3 days later. The transformation had taken everything from her, every ounce of strength, every reserve of energy. She drifted in and out of consciousness, aware only of Kael's presence beside her, his hand always holding hers, his voice murmuring reassurances she couldn't quite hear. Now, as afternoon light streamed through the windows, she opened her eyes to find him asleep in the chair beside the bed, his head resting on the mattress near her hand. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his jaw shadowed with days of stubble. She reached out and touched his hair gently. His eyes snapped open immediately, amber and alert. "Sera," relief flooded his features. "You're awake." "Really awake? How long?" 3 days. Diana said it was normal. First shifts are traumatic. Your body needed time to heal and adjust. He moved to sit on the edge of the bed, cupping her face in his hands. "How do you feel?" "Different." And she did. Every sense was heightened. She could hear conversations happening in rooms below, smell the pine forest miles away, feel the thrumming energy of the pack moving through their territory. "Is it always like this?" "You'll learn to control it, to filter out what you don't need." His thumb stroked her cheekbone. "Your wolf. She's beautiful, Sera. I've never seen anything like her." Sera closed her eyes, reaching inside herself for that presence she'd felt during the transformation. And there it was, her wolf, curled up and resting, but definitely there. No longer separate, but part of her. Integrated. "She's been waiting for me," Sera whispered. "All my life she's been waiting for me to be ready. And now you are." Kael pressed his forehead to hers. "The 3rd trial is tomorrow. But with your wolf awake, I'll pass it." Sera's voice was steady with newfound confidence. "Whatever it is, I'll pass it." A knock interrupted them. Iris entered carrying a tray of food, her face lighting up when she saw Sera awake. "Finally, I was starting to worry you'd sleep through your own Luna ceremony. Luna ceremony? Sera accepted the tray gratefully, suddenly ravenous. It's what happens after you pass all 3 trials, Iris explained, perching on the end of the bed. The pack formally accepts you as Alpha's mate. There's a ceremony under the full moon, which happens to be tomorrow night. Kael's expression darkened slightly. If she passes the 3rd trial, she will. Iris's confidence was absolute. The hardest part was waking the wolf. The rest is just formality. But something in Kael's face made Sera pause mid-bite. What is the 3rd trial? He exchanged a look with Iris, then sighed. The trial of heart. It tests your loyalty, your willingness to sacrifice for the pack. Your character in the face of impossible choices. That doesn't sound so bad. It wouldn't be, Kael said slowly. Except Elder Grayson and the Council have the right to design the trial. And Grayson, despite his newfound respect for your bloodline, is still a traditionalist. He believes Lunas should be tested to their absolute limit. A chill ran down Sera's spine. What does that mean? Before Kael could answer, Diana entered, her expression grave. Kael, we have a problem. Marcus just returned from patrol. Your ex-fiancé is at the border. Sera's blood turned to ice. Marcus Whitmore is here? With 12 men and a warrant for your return. Diana's face was grim. He's claiming you were kidnapped. That you're being held against your will. That's insane. I ran away from him. He has documents. Forged but legally binding in the human world. Your signature on engagement papers, marriage licenses, power of attorney forms. Kael stood, his body radiating barely controlled fury. He's planned this carefully. Sera threw off the covers, ignoring how her legs shook. I'll go talk to him. Tell him to leave. Absolutely not. Kael's voice was sharp. He's not getting within 100 yards of you. Kael, he's brought human authorities. If we refuse them access, if we act hostile, I don't care. You're Pack now. You're under our protection. Under my protection? His eyes flashed amber. Let him try to take you. He'll learn what it means to threaten an Alpha's mate. Diana cleared her throat. Actually, there's a complication. Elder Grayson has declared that Sera's handling of this situation will be her 3rd trial. The room went silent. What? Kael's voice was dangerously quiet. The trial of heart tests loyalty and character. Grayson claims this is the perfect test. Sera must choose between returning to her human life to face Marcus legally, or staying and potentially bringing human authorities down on the entire pack. Diana's expression was apologetic. If she runs, if she hides behind pack protection, Grayson will declare she failed, that she put herself above the pack's safety. That's not a fair test, Iris protested. That's an impossible choice. That's the point, Sera said quietly, understanding dawning. He wants to see if I'll sacrifice my own safety for the pack, if I'll face Marcus to keep the pack hidden. She looked at Kael. It's actually clever, ruthless but clever. I won't let you do this. Kael's hands clenched into fists. I won't let you put yourself in danger for some council game. It's not a game. It's a test of whether I deserve to be Luna. Sera stood on shaking legs, moving to the window. She could see figures at the tree line, Marcus's unmistakable silhouette, surrounded by men in uniforms. If I hide, if I let you fight my battles, what kind of leader would I be? A living one, Kael growled. Sera turned to face him, saw the fear and fury warring in his expression. She crossed to him, taking his face in her hands the way he always did with her. I'm not going back to him. I'm not leaving you, but I need to face Marcus on my own terms. End this cleanly, so it can never threaten the pack again. He'll hurt you. He'll try. Sera felt her wolf stir inside her, felt the power that now ran through her veins. But I'm not the same woman who ran from him 3 days ago. I'm not helpless anymore. Kael searched her face for a long moment, then pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. If anything happens to you, if he so much as touches you, then you can tear him apart. Sera pulled back enough to meet his eyes. But let me do this my way first. Let me prove I can protect what's mine, what's yours. His voice was rough. You, the pack, this life. She rose on her toes and kissed him softly. Everything I never knew I wanted until I found it. Diana moved toward the door. Grayson is waiting at the clearing. He'll oversee the trial. You have 1 hour to prepare." After she and Iris left, Kael and Sera stood together in silence. Finally, he spoke. "There's something you should know about the third trial. About what it really tests. Tell me. It's not just about sacrifice or loyalty. It's about whether you can make the hard choice when it matters. Whether you can be ruthless when necessary." His amber eyes were intense. "Alphas and Lunas, we can't always be kind. Sometimes we have to be cruel to protect the pack. Can you do that, Sera? Can you be what they need you to be?" Sera thought about Marcus and his forged documents. About how he'd manipulated her, controlled her, tried to steal everything her family had built. About how he'd driven her into a forest to escape, where she'd almost died. She thought about the white wolf that now lived inside her, wild and fierce and done with being prey. "Yes," she said quietly, "I can be exactly that cruel." Kael's expression was complicated, pride and concern and something darker. "Then go face your demon. But remember, you don't have to do it alone. Your pack is behind you, and He cupped her face one more time. "I'll be watching, always watching, and if you need me, I'll howl." Sera smiled grimly. "And you'll come running." "Every time," he promised. "Every single time." An hour later, Sera walked to the clearing alone, wearing simple clothes but carrying the confidence of her awakened wolf. The pack gathered on one side, Marcus and his men on the other, and Elder Grayson standing in the middle like a judge. Marcus's face when he saw her was smug and victorious. "Sera, darling, thank God. These people have been holding you captive, but I'm here now. You're safe." Sera looked at the man she'd almost married and felt nothing but cold contempt. "Let's get this over with," she said, and walked forward to face her final trial. Chapter 10. Heart of the Luna Marcus. Whitmore looked exactly as Sera remembered. Perfectly styled hair, expensive suit, and that smile that had once made her feel safe, but now made her skin crawl. Behind him stood 12 men in security uniforms, all armed, all watching her with professional detachment. "Sera," Marcus said warmly, taking a step forward. "I've been so worried. When you disappeared from our engagement party, I thought the worst. But these people assured me you were unharmed." Elder Grayson stood between them like a referee. "Miss Hathaway has been a guest of the Thornwood community. She came here of her own free will, did she?" Marcus's smile sharpened. "Because the documents I have suggest otherwise. My fiancé has been under considerable stress. Her parents' recent deaths, the pressure of our upcoming marriage. She wasn't thinking clearly when she ran." He extended his hand toward Sera. "Come on, darling. Let's go home." Sera didn't move. "I'm not your fiancé, Marcus. I never was. Not really." His expression flickered. Just for a moment, before the mask of concern returned. "You're confused, traumatized, that's understandable. But I have our marriage license, power of attorney documents, all signed by you, forged by you," Sera interrupted calmly. "I found them in your study the night of the engagement party. That's why I ran." Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's a serious accusation. Do you have proof? Do you have the originals? Or just copies?" Sera took a step closer, feeling her wolf stir beneath her skin. "Because I never signed anything willingly. Every document has my signature in slightly different handwriting, different pressure, different angle. Any forensic expert would spot the forgeries." One of the uniformed men shifted uncomfortably. Marcus noticed. "Sera, please. You're embarrassing yourself. Making wild accusations." "I'm telling the truth." Sera's voice rang out clearly. "You wanted my family's land. The 200 acres in the mountains. You knew I'd inherited it when my grandmother died, and you knew it was worth millions. So you courted me, proposed and planned to steal it the moment we were married." "Your land?" Marcus laughed, but it sounded forced. "Darling, that property is worthless. It's just forest and rocks. Then why did you have geological surveys done?" Sera had found those documents too, though she hadn't understood them at the time. Now, with her wolf's heightened senses and the knowledge of her bloodline, she understood perfectly. "You discovered something on that land. Something valuable." Marcus's expression went cold. "You have no idea what you're talking about, don't I?" Sera glanced at Elder Grayson, saw the slight nod of approval. The trial wasn't just about facing Marcus. It was about protecting Pack secrets while doing so. My family's land sits on a convergence point, a place of power. You sensed it somehow, even though you're human. You wanted to exploit it. This is insane. The standing stones on that land are ancient, sacred, and they're mine by blood and birthright. Sera's eyes flashed, and she knew they showed hints of amber. You can't have them. You can't have me, and if you don't leave this territory right now, you'll discover exactly how far I'm willing to go to protect what's mine. The air itself seemed to thicken. The standing stones at the edge of the clearing, similar to the ones where she'd awakened her wolf, began to glow faintly. The pack members stirred, recognizing power when they felt it. Marcus's security team exchanged nervous glances. One of them spoke up. "Mr. Whitmore, maybe we should—" "She's bluffing," Marcus snapped. But Sera saw fear in his eyes now. "Sera, stop this nonsense. You're coming with me whether you want to or not. I have legal guardianship papers. Based on what authority?" Elder Grayson's voice cut through like a blade. "She's of legal age. She has no living relatives. She's here voluntarily. Your documents mean nothing." "I have witnesses who will testify that she was mentally unstable. Paid witnesses," Sera said. "Just like you paid the jeweler to forge my signature on the ring receipt. Just like you paid your lawyer to create false medical evaluations declaring me incompetent." She pulled a phone from her pocket. Iris had brought it to her earlier. "And I have recordings. Every conversation we had in the last month before I ran, including the one where you told your father exactly how you planned to have me institutionalized once we were married." The color drained from Marcus's face. "You're lying, am I?" Sera pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the clearing, tinny but clear. "She'll sign everything over once the marriage is finalized. And if she doesn't cooperate, we have the medical evaluations ready. One hearing and she'll be declared incompetent. The land will be mine either way." The security team took a collective step back. One of them removed his hand from his weapon. "We weren't told about this, Mr. Whitmore." "This is out of context," she edited. Marcus was sweating now, his polished exterior cracking. "I didn't edit anything." Sera took another step forward, and this time Marcus backed up. "You underestimated me. You thought I was weak, helpless, easy to control. But I'm none of those things. Not anymore." Her wolf surged inside her, wanting to shift, wanting to show this man exactly what she'd become. But Sera held back. Shifting in front of humans would expose the pack, would fail the trial. Instead, she let her power manifest differently. The standing stones blazed brighter. The ground beneath Marcus's feet trembled. Wind whipped through the clearing despite the clear sky, carrying the scent of wild things and ancient magic. "You will leave this territory," Sera said. Her voice layered with something other, something that made even Elder Grayson's eyes widen. "You will return to Philadelphia. You will destroy every forged document. You will tell everyone our engagement was mutually ended. And you will never speak my name or my family's name again." "You can't," Marcus started. "I can." The stones pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. "Because this land recognizes me. My blood, my birthright. And if you ever come back here, if you ever threaten what's mine again, I will make you wish you'd never heard the name Hathaway." It wasn't a physical threat. She never touched him, never shifted, never did anything that would expose the pack's secret. But the power in her words, the authority of her bloodline speaking through her, it was enough. Marcus broke. He stumbled backward, nearly falling. "Keep your damn land. Keep your crazy mountain cult. I don't want any part of this." He turned to his security team. "We're leaving, now." "Good choice," Elder Grayson said mildly. As Marcus and his men retreated toward their vehicles, one of the security guards paused. "Miss Hathaway? For what it's worth, I'm glad you got away from him." "Man's a snake," Sera nodded, not trusting her voice. Her whole body was shaking with the effort of controlling her power, her wolf, her emotions. The moment Marcus's car disappeared down the mountain road, Sera's legs gave out. Kael was there instantly, catching her before she hit the ground. "I've got you. I've got you. She managed. "Did I pass?" Elder Grayson approached, his expression transformed. Where there had been skepticism and coldness, there was now respect. "You faced your enemy without violence. You protected Pack secrets while defending yourself. You used power with restraint and authority with mercy. He knelt before her, an elder kneeling before a Luna. You passed Sera Hathaway. The Pack accepts you. The gathered wolves erupted in howls of approval. Even Lydia, standing at the edge of the circle, inclined her head in acknowledgement. Sera buried her face in Kael's chest, feeling his heart thundering against her cheek. It's over. It's finally over. No, Kael said, tilting her face up to his. His amber eyes blazed with pride and possession and something deeper. It's just beginning. Diana approached with her ceremonial robes. The moon rises in 3 hours. We have a Luna ceremony to prepare for. Iris appeared at Sera's other side, grinning widely. Hope you're ready for a party. Werewolf ceremonies get pretty wild. Sera looked around at the faces surrounding her. Pack members who doubted her, challenged her, tested her. But now they looked at her with acceptance. With belonging, she'd lost her old life, her old identity, but she'd gained something infinitely more valuable, a pack, a purpose, a power she was only beginning to understand, and a mate who looked at her like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. I'm ready, Sera said, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. Let's make this official. Kael swept her into his arms, carrying her toward the lodge as the Pack followed, already beginning the preparations for the ceremony that would bind her to them forever. The final trial was complete. Now came the beginning of everything else. Together, they walked downstairs to face the Pack.